So I would advise your listeners, if you're a small company and you have a good idea and you have a good product and you have a good service, do not be afraid to give up equity to get money. That's the cheapest money. And you need the cheapest money at the beginning because it's when you are most vulnerable.
So you're ready to take your business to the next level, but you don't have the money. Womp womp. What do? How do you get it? I'm Kalilah Reynolds, and it's time for another episode of Money Moves JA, brought to you in partnership with EXIM Bank's Business Advisory Service, giving you the tools to grow your business. My guest today is CEO of JFP, Metry Seaga. He'll give us some pointers. Welcome back, Metry. Glad to have you again.
Thanks for having me.
This time in your capacity as, is it chairman or CEO?
CEO.
CEO of Jamaica Fiberglass Producers, now known as JFP.
That's correct.
You listed on the stock exchange last year, a successful IPO. And today we're talking about getting your business ready for external financing, because what you have done at JFP is something that many small business owners or any size business owners aspire to do, which is to list or at some point seek funding for their business.
Right.
So at what point do you realize that you need funding?
When those Fridays at payday come around and you don't have any more hair to pull out and you realize that you just can't continue to run like this. Most businesses, most small businesses are hamstrung and eventually fail because of a lack of capitalization. They simply just don't have the money to make it through those rough periods. And most businesses don't become successful, or let me not say successful, but they don't become cash flow positive for a couple of years because you take time building brands and building your market and building market share and those sorts of things. So it is when you realize that you just can't do this hand-to-mouth thing anymore, and you need to get a lump sum of money that you, as the CEO or as the do-it-aller, can start to concentrate your efforts on the things that will make you money rather than outing fires.
I like that title. I think we should call CEOs DIAs.
Do-it-allers.
DIAs, do-it-allers.
Yes,
that
absolutely
really is the
true.
job. So what are some popular sources of external funding?
So listen, there's always your bank. And, I think it is important for people to develop relationships with their banks. And we don't do it enough. The banks don't do it enough, and companies don't do it enough. You need to get up out of your seat and go to your bank and knock on your bank manager's door. You need to go and pick up your bank manager and bring him to your organization, bring him to your operation. Let him see what you're doing. It is hard. They have hundreds of customers. Hard for them to become intimate with each one. It's not like it was in the old days when bank managers used to come into your company and sit down and have lunch with you. That doesn't happen much anymore. So I think it is incumbent on a young and up-and-coming CEO to have that relationship with your banker. Now, bank financing usually is the most expensive, and it usually is the most difficult. But it is important to have that relationship so that you can reach out to them when you need them. And bear in mind that you will never go anywhere in your business if you don't have that relationship. So if you don't need them today, you're going to need them tomorrow or the day after or the day after. And you may not need them today, you may pay them off everything, but still have a line of credit available. So I would advise people, get close with your banker.
That's great advice, because a lot of banks, they just don't understand what you do.
Absolutely, they don't.
You try to explain to people that you build custom things for, they don't get it until they see it.
So, and every time I get a new bank manager, I go and pick them up myself. I bring them to my office, and they're blown away. They say, oh, I didn't know you did this. Oh, you make this.
Exactly.
Oh, you could do furniture for me. So listen, they need to know. They can be good salespeople for you too. You know, they can recommend you to people because they have a lot of customers.
That's true.
Then there are other sources of funding, like angel investors that are out there that look for good ideas that good people have, and they're willing to fund it for a share of the company. Then there is going on the market, which gives you financing at the cheapest cost. It's free, but you have to give up some equity. Now, a lot of people are very jealous of their equity in Jamaica.
Yes.
And I encourage
Not just
people.
Jamaica.
Well, all over the world, true.
Yeah.
But you see people that are the key owners in mega companies. Like, I think I read the other day that Jeff Bezos owns like 4% of Amazon.
But he's still a multi-billionaire, one of the richest people in the world, just off of 4%.
4%. Because he was willing to sell equity and grow the company. So I would advise your listeners, if you're a small company and you have a good idea and you have a good product and you have a good service, do not be afraid to give up equity to get money. That's the cheapest money. And you need the cheapest money at the beginning because it's when you are most vulnerable. So you can get a private investor or you can go to the market. Private investors are much easier. You don't have the regulations. You have people that are willing, that you can talk to, friends, family, that you can say to, listen, I have a great idea, but I just don't have the money. Give me $100,000 and take 20% of my business. Work with me on it. Let's see how we can make this work together. And I think that's how some people can do it. It really depends on what the best fit is for you, where you are in your life at the time that you're in. For some people, if they're older, they may want to bring in younger people as investors. That can help them to have a succession plan. So it really is, there's no one size fits all. There are different ways of getting investment. And the only thing I would suggest to you is when you're bringing an investor in, make sure that they're reasonably equally yoked as you are.
Meaning?
Meaning that you don't want to bring in somebody that has different thoughts and ideas about life and business. You don't want to bring in somebody who is going to want their cash back immediately versus you wanting to reinvest the cash. So you need to have a conversation. You need to talk to that person. If your mindset is, listen, I'm going to reinvest every dollar into this business for the next 20 years, build it out, and then get out, you don't want to be getting an investor who is looking for a payment every year, a dividend every year. So make sure you're equally yoked where that is concerned.
That's great advice. Make sure you're both on the same
wavelength, right.
Yeah. So what are some of the things you should consider when deciding what type of financing to seek or accept?
So again, talk to your banker. Bankers have a suite of available products that can suit your need. So some people will need account receivable financing, for example. If your company has done great sales, but you have a lot of money on the road because it's long receivables, then EXIM Bank, for example, no plug here, but EXIM Bank has a receivables financing arrangement that you can go in and get your money up front. They take a small percentage and they collect the money for you. So these are some of the different things. There's a suite of products out there. You have to make sure it fits your needs. So look at what your needs are, and then you try to tailor your loan based on that. I would say to young investors, projections are critically important. When you're doing your projections, make sure that on the income side, you are very conservative. Make sure on the outgoing side, the expenses side, you are very bullish. So when you do your expenses, put an extra 10% in there just for no good reason. When you're doing your income, take off 10% for no good reason. Just so that you will beat your numbers if all things are equal.
I learned that from my dad. Always ask for more than what you want.
Absolutely.
Not intentionally. It was just, if you're asking for $5, if you want $5, you better ask him for 10. And he might give you 5.
Yeah, absolutely.
Learn that lesson young. Yeah, so your company, like I mentioned, JFP listed last year, which is what a lot of people aspire to do. How difficult or easy was that process?
Listen, it was not an easy process, but it was a good process. It made our company more streamlined. It forced us to do a lot of the right things that you need to do in business. It forced us to have the checks and balances. So the team that we have did an amazing job of getting us there. And we're now there. And the team continues to do an amazing job to keep us there. It is, as I said earlier, the cheapest form of financing. But for the first 36 years of our business, we had a relationship with our bank and have had a relationship with our bank. But we had debt. When we went public, we were able to pay off that debt. So now we're a debt-free company. Are we going to go back into debt? Maybe, depending on what the needs of the company are. So it's not a one-time and done thing. Investments are, investments in your company and spending in your company. Ebbs and flows, and you need to be able to be flexible and be debt-free when you need to be, or have debt when you need it.
And then finally, once you've got the money, you've secured the financing, how do you ensure that you don't just burn it?
You have to be responsible, and that's why it's important to have people to answer to. And when you're a public company, you have your shareholders. We have nearly 2,000 shareholders that I have to stand up in an annual general meeting and answer to as to why I spent what I spent. And if the numbers don't look good, they're coming for me. So that's my responsibility. If you're not a public company, your responsibility is to yourself and your workers. Because if you don't do the right things, if you take that money and spend it out, so you get financing to buy a machine, and you buy a lesser machine so you can go and buy a nice car, you are not being responsible to yourself or to your workers, because your workers are relying on you to be successful, because the more successful you are, the better they will do. So I think if that's not your mindset, if your mindset is not to continue and maintain and grow your business, then you probably need to be doing something else.
Thank you so much. These are very, very good gems of advice, Metry.
Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Here's a recap of Metry's key points. Every young CEO should establish a great relationship with their banker. You can get funding from First Angels, which is an angel investor network. Another way to get funding is going public on the stock market. Do not be afraid to give up equity to get funding. When you're doing your projections for your business, make sure on the income side you're very conservative and on the expenses side you are extremely bullish.
That's it for this episode of Money Moves JA, brought to you in partnership with EXIM Bank's Business Advisory Service, giving you the tools to grow your business. Visit their website at eximbankja.com and visit my website, KalilahReynolds.com, for a summary of this episode. See you next time.